Well, a warm welcome to all of our friends out there in the Boss Hole Transformation Nation. This is your co-host, John Broer. And when I say co-host, that means there's another co-host here, and it's Sarah Best. Hi, Sarah. What's happening?
Hey, John. It is good to be with you. Things are rocking and rolling. The world is crazy, but we are here, and we have a great episode today.
We are here. Tell our listeners who we're going to meet today.
Well, our guest today, friends, is Eric Harris. You must get to know Eric. He is the inventor of the Campfire Method. We're going to talk about the Campfire Method. It is a way to present your ideas as a leader without a slide deck, and there's just so much more to it. He's a former marketing executive who's really brought together all the best things about the way people interact with information to help equip leaders to be more present and more persuasive with their audiences. And I'm not even doing it justice. I just think you're going to be excited to tune in and learn the simple steps to the Campfire Method. And Eric has written a book. It is dropping right about now, actually. So how exciting to offer an opportunity for our listeners to find the book and learn more about his methodology.
Check out all the show notes. All the info is in there, and let's meet Eric. Boss Hole Chronicles are brought to you by Real Good Ventures, a talent optimization firm helping organizations diagnose their most critical people and execution issues with world-class analytics. Make sure to check out all the resources in the show notes and be sure to follow us and share your feedback. Enjoy today's episode.
Eric Harris, welcome to the Boss Hole Chronicles podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really just thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
I was eager for this episode. I have personally enjoyed working with you as a coach, and you've been helping train me in really the approach and the methodology we're going to be talking about today. What really struck me as I was learning the principles of what we're going to call the Campfire Method, we in our world want leaders to learn to adjust and adapt their style, to recognize that there's wisdom and strength in what they do and how they're naturally wired, but that everyone's different and people need to hear things in a different way and they need to have experience in a different way. And it's so often the case that we encounter leaders who say things like, I just need people to be challenging. I need that intensity at the top level. Yesterday I heard a guy say, my top 5 people, they know they're going to get beat up. Like, I need that challenge to really have us be successful. And I was thinking about the people on the team. Much like that, and in this way, the Campfire Method offers leaders a way to adjust and adapt their style. It's just so pure and authentic. So it is exciting to have you here to outline that. So let's just start by asking you, Eric, how did you come up with the Campfire Method?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So I was born and raised in advertising. I started my career in the business of brands, and we did so many presentations that we lived and breathed around this idea of we have a big idea for a client that would move their business forward.
Yeah.
And we would make every excuse to have a presentation. And we saw ourselves as galvanizers and people who could rally people around common ideas. And it really was about the idea. It was the idea, it was all about the idea. A couple years after I left advertising, I went to go work on the corporate side. I went into corporate marketing. And when I got there, I looked around and I realized, it's not about ideas. It's about decks. The deck, the almighty slide deck. And the way that people were communicating with one another was so transactional. And I realized how pervasive that was. And I looked back into my career and the skills that I had developed as a creative director. And I said, I can help these people. And so I started to train my team on how to deliver presentations that really helped others not just get information or be told what to do, but to create meaning, to create belief, to tap into the emotional essence and the motivational posture of a person.
Yeah.
so that you could effectively get them from point A to point B, not as an act of aggression, but as an act of compassion.
I had picked up on that line, an act of compassion. Leaders not selling their ideas, but helping people see a better future as an act of compassion. So powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us more about how do we begin to understand a deck-free world? Like it's probably causing trepidation for some of our listeners because the deck is the present, like it is the message. So in this
In a lot of
idea,
cases.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's understand a little bit more about the current landscape. So, as of today, Microsoft estimates there are about 1.2 billion daily active users of PowerPoint. 1.2 billion. Okay, so just put
Yeah.
that in the frame of the global population. That's about 1 in every 7 people on Earth are using PowerPoint daily.
Wow.
So those 1.2 billion people are responsible for about 500 million slides a day.
Wow.
Okay, so that's how
Oh,
pervasive this is. That's
yeah.
that's the world that we live in. And so what we have to ask ourselves is it working? Is it actually doing what we expect it to do? And I think, you can look at employee engagement numbers, you can look at the general state of the employee experience, which is pretty much currently thought to be the worst it's ever been,
Right.
right? So the way we communicate at work, really what it boils down to is we are presenting all the time. We are always presenting. You're not just presenting when the title of the meeting on the calendar invite says presentation. You're presenting in the break room. You're presenting when you ask for a resource. You're presenting when you share the budget. You're presenting, there's so many different versions of presentation.
Right.
And what they all seem to have in common, and what they have for the last, 25, 30 years or so, is that they all seem to revolve around decks. So so I'm going to go ahead and argue that it's not working, right? The loneliness epidemic at work is the worst we've ever seen. People are connected to one another, but they're not connecting with one another.
Right.
And so the current landscape is just frightening. And a leader who actually models a compassionate approach to understanding their audience and also taking responsibility for their ideas is a that is so rare, but it is so welcome in this environment. And so that's why the Campfire Method exists. It's because we want to empower leaders to be compassionate communicators in the air we breathe in business, which is presentations.
Yeah. Tell us more.
So here's how you do it. So number one, we have to understand the science. We have to understand what's going on in both the presenter's mind and heart and in the audience's minds and hearts. Once we understand kind of the science of storytelling, then the next step is to really understand your audience. So that's the promise number one is I'm going to understand who's listening, and not just demographically, not just title, geography, location, understanding your audience by what they feel, what they fear, what they celebrate, and who they really are as people.
Humans.
Um, Humans, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, humans with real and meaningful skepticism about change, humans with real and meaningful joy that they find in the work that they do, or at least they have the capacity for that.
Right.
And so if we can recognize them as the humans that they are, then the next step is we're going to craft the story that will reach them.
Yeah.
And when we talk about storytelling in presentations, it's not for decoration. It's not anecdotes for the sake of entertainment. It's actually story as a structural system. It's scaffolding to help someone get from one side of the creek to the other. It's to get someone from point A to point B. We have a responsibility to the way that humans prefer to communicate and the way that we have for millennia. It's so coded in us. It's in our DNA. We are wired for story because we're wired for meaning. So
Can I just pause there and say, every time I've heard storytelling or, the opportunity to use storytelling, I contract a little bit and I get a little scared. And there's a part of me that, even though I know it's what we do as humans, I'm like, I'm not sure if I know how to do that. And it sounds like it's so distinct from everything that I've been trained how to do. But I think what I hear you saying is it's really not. It's
oh
really
no,
not different from how we're wired.
no, not at all. Not at all. It's really actually quite alarming when you see, for example, um, like if I was going to tell you something, if I was going to tell you a story as a friend, I would tell you the beginning, I would tell you the messy middle, and
Yeah.
then I would tell you the resolution at the end.
Yeah.
That's that is a simple three-part framework that humans have used to communicate forever.
Yeah.
It's the story arc. I mean, that's what it
It is the
is.
story arc,
Mhm.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And yet, if I was going to give you a presentation and I was one of these leaders who are using modern conventional tools to do it, I wouldn't do it that simply. I would have an executive summary slide and an agenda, and then I would walk you through the KPIs, and then I would show you the spreadsheet, and I would embed that spreadsheet into a slide deck, and I would make you squint your eyes, and I would even make apologies about it. And I would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, this slide is a bit of an eye chart." And everyone in the room would groan, and then we would all just go on about our business. No one would change. No one would understand anything differently about the future and their role in it.
Right.
That's
E-
right.
Eric, you wouldn't know this about me, but I started my first practice back in 1990, and the name of my firm was called Strictly Speaking. I mean, that's what I did. I helped executives and people in business develop their presentation skills. And your point resonates so strongly because I would say to an executive, I want you to imagine going into this presentation and the monitor or the projector, whatever, is not working. I mean, you need to be able to convey and share this experience without all these trappings. And that horrified them because they were so, to your point, it's so formulaic and they're so rooted in it. It's become part of sort of their presentation DNA. And that's why I'm excited for our audience to learn about the Campfire Method, because again, it allows you to truly, from a more internal perspective, share something, which requires some vulnerability. And not a lot of executives are comfortable with that.
Oh yeah, no, I love how you said that. It's remarkable how often we see that it's reversed,
Hmm.
right? Like the challenge is I'm a leader. I have a responsibility to the company. I have to move this company from point A to point B. In order to move that company, I have to move the people.
Yeah.
So these are high stakes moments. We walk into those high stakes moments, and to calm our own nerves, we slam everything into a PowerPoint.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so even though we know we have a responsibility to the people, we tend to default to what's easiest and most comfortable for us. And that is what needs to change.
I have the opportunity, by the way, to read chapters from your just about to be dropped book, right? Has it dropped yet, Eric? Is it?
It drops next Tuesday, May
Okay.
5th.
Yeah.
Oh, we
It's
get to
so,
talk about another book. Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Awesome.
mean, this is the whole point of featuring you today, is to make sure this work and this opportunity gets out there for people. But as I reflected about what you communicate in your book about story, you've been saying this, but the words I would use are, it creates tension. There's that beginning, the messy middle, and the resolution or the end. It creates tension, but it draws the audience in. It makes them care. And I think that's a very personal, compassionate thing to do, is create an experience that somebody can contribute to or engage with. I think that's powerful. And then my favorite part is how it shows, your story shows a future worth choosing. And it gives the person sitting there the opportunity to choose or not, but to be kind of drawn in, if that makes sense. Am I saying that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, we do have a responsibility to paint a picture of the future. And here's where the response, this is a coin with two sides. So the picture of the future must be compelling and exciting and create opportunities in people's minds. And at the same time, the future alone is not enough. It's
Right.
not the reason why people will say yes to an idea or to a vision or get on board and enroll in a strategy or
Right.
join an organization through a complex change. The
Right.
future alone has to be coupled with the tension of the present. And one of the things that I'm fond of repeating is people don't buy because the future is shiny. People buy because the present is heavy.
That's right. I love this. We talk about this a lot when we're working with leadership teams. When we're trying to move from here to there, we could spend all day talking about how wonderful there is going to be and how amazing and how effective we're going to be. But that does not move people. You're right. You have to have a strong business case for why we can't stay here.
Absolutely, and that's a mistake that I see people who might be labeled boss holes make, is
Mhm.
that, as a leader, especially the more visionary style leaders, some of them tend to, and I'll go ahead and say we. I'll put myself in this category too, because
Yeah.
I will admit to have been a boss hole from time to time. The future is so exciting. It's so exciting, and we often as visionaries live in that future. In fact, we cannot be distracted by the present. It's
Yeah.
it's part of what makes us, it's part of our superpowers. It's part of what makes us special and effective is our own ambition, right? So the need to live in the future is driving a lot of these leaders. And so what we see happen a lot with the more visionary style communicator is that there's a little too much emphasis on the promises of tomorrow and not enough grounding and empathy that can come from the realities of today.
Yeah. And that makes me think about the numbers of people. John, it's more than 60%, is it not? The people who are a little challenged by change and uncertainty can be very
Oh, yeah.
stopping and
Yeah.
they need to know, like they need to understand what about what we're doing now? What happens to what I know and how do I gain access to what I need to know to understand this new future?
Oh yeah.
So the word that comes to mind for me, Eric, is persuasion. And that might be a heavy word, but again, it's different than coercion and manipulation and pressure. I mean, in order for people to literally be persuaded to move from here to there, you're right. There has to be something compelling, but it also has to be rooted in reality. To Sarah's point, those of us that are visionary and thinking about how bright the future might be, let's acknowledge what people are experiencing right now, and what is that compelling message or the way to help them out of that particular, toward that other place that holds more promise. And yeah, I mean, that is, it seems to be completely woven into the methodology you've created.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, and I really do love the term persuasion as a noun
Yeah.
that describes in an essence what story is capable of.
Mm.
And it does come with some baggage. We need to recognize that. And it's important for leaders to understand that, the whole job isn't always to persuade. Persuasion is part of it, but that is also, it must be grounded in an understanding of the current state. And you must demonstrate that understanding. And also, I do think there's this mentality sometimes where leaders will express a disdain for the current state
Mhm.
and not realize what kind of damage that actually does, because a lot of the people on their team take intense and immense pride in creating that current state. And they're walking around all day thinking, look at all this cool work I'm doing. Look at what I'm getting to do. And then the leader comes in and says, tomorrow's going to be even better.
Right. Right. Well, and I want to just double click on the empathy component. John, you brought it up, and Eric, you mentioned it earlier. In this age of AI and this magnanimous transformation that's happening, it feels like instantaneously, like the ground really is moving for everybody, regardless of your industry. I think that if leaders don't not just I mean, they can't just understand how people are experiencing this, they have to believe them. They have to believe that there's trepidation and frustration and fear and anger and be willing to work with that versus discount it, dismiss it, make it wrong because they don't necessarily feel that same way. So I think this methodology helps the leader center upon what that person is experiencing and build from there.
Thank you. That's great.
Now we're going to talk about environment, are we not?
Yeah, let's talk about environment. So
There-
that's the third. The third promise is that we will leverage our environment so that it supports our ideas. And the environment is one of those issues that is commonly defaulted, commonly overlooked, commonly accepted for whatever we are given.
Yeah.
For example, when we're scheduling presentations, we will often just go to the Outlook calendar and say, what's available? What time can I get? But when you're approaching things more intentionally through what you learn in the Campfire Method, you'll take into consideration the time, the location, and the atmosphere, because people will anchor their beliefs and their feelings not only to where they are, but how it feels where they are, and also when they're experiencing these messages.
Mm.
So there are different times of the day that work better for certain types of communications. There are certain sequences and contexts wherein communications land differently. For example, a message that reaches people close to a layoff has a totally different impact than a message that reaches people close to a big sales conversion. So
Right.
there's a lot of things that leaders kind of forget to take into consideration, or sometimes, worst case scenario, they're lazy about it.
Mhm.
They know that those contexts are real, but they choose to ignore them for the sake of convenience.
I'm remembering a recent encounter. And I think we experience this a lot. Like, we'll get the time that's available. "Hey, this is a busy leadership team. We want you to come in for 30 minutes. We're gonna be at this location." And, like, "Okay, we'll be there." But I walked into this room, and there weren't even enough seats for everybody in the room.
Hmm.
Well, one person was standing up sort of in a windowsill against the wall, and the room was easily, 2 to 3 times smaller than it needed to be for this group of leaders. And there was this little teeny screen in the front of the room. So I just wanna clarify too, or emphasize this default. Sometimes we just accept what's there without understanding, how it will take away from, the encounter and the experience that we're hoping to create for the person. So to be a little more on purpose about even the lighting in the room. Do you have any good examples, Eric? I know in the book you talk about the sales presentation, the organization that was getting pitches from the marketing crews, and there was one that stood out from the others. I'm not sure if that's a good example that you want to share here, but something like that so our listeners can grab a hold of it.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to tell that story. So this was many years ago. I was part of a team that was asked to choose a new advertising agency for our business, and we went on a tour and visited 5 agencies in 2 days, 5 cities in two
Yes,
days.
yes, yes.
It was brutal, and we were beat up by the end of it. But really, the beating was that the first 4 agencies were exact cookie cutter replicas, presentation wise, of one another.
Mhm.
They would welcome us with applause, walk us down a long hallway to a U shaped conference room table. There'd be a big screen. We would all sit in our chairs and basically pay homage to the screen. They would regurgitate our brief back to us as if that was proof that they had understood the assignment. And then they would walk us through work that really failed to deliver on the brief. And it was so frustrating. By the time we left the fourth of those agencies, we were like, do we even need another one of these? This is ridiculous. We show up at the fifth agency. It's late at night. The CEO greets us in the lobby. There's no applause. And she says, "Hey, y'all, respectfully, the team that worked on your business is waiting for you in the conference room, but everyone else went home for the night. because we didn't really think it was important to put on a dog and pony show. We value work-life balance. And so right off the jump, we were like,
Hmm.
this is different. This is special. And when they walked us down the hallway, instead of walking us into a slideshow theater, they walked us into what was like a country club lounge. They had retrofitted their entire conference room to be leather club chairs. There was a bartender in the corner mixing old fashions. There was no screen anywhere to be found. And they invited us in for a conversation. And they said, we figured you've had a long couple of days. We thought you might like to just sit back and talk for a minute.
Wow.
And oh my gosh, it was so welcome. And not only that, but when they went through their work, they handed it out on notepads and gave us pencils and said, "Mark it up. Let's do this together. Nothing is precious. The only thing that we really want is this conversation with you so that we can shape what our work will become together." And it they created a completely different environment than the other agencies. Afterwards, the CEO stopped me and my CMO in the hallway and said, "Hey, we understand you've had a lot to think about. I'm going to go ahead and send a contract through DocuSign. Let us know your thoughts or if you have questions." We got in the car, we got in the Uber on the way to the airport, and my CMO signed the DocuSign in the Uber.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to allow creative energy to flow to be the human experience it needed to be. That's phenomenal. It's a great example.
Oh, yeah.
Can
Thank
I?
you. So environment is important. Go ahead, John.
Well, no, I wanted to ask a very specific question relative. I mean, getting back to the whole boss hole prevention idea. Um, I think there is a lost art of what I would call extemporaneous or impromptu. The capacity for somebody to be very extemporaneous or impromptu, provide some impromptu remarks in the moment. And how does the campfire method help an executive, manager, supervisor, senior leader really understand that in the moment, unexpectedly, needing to convey um, a great message, an engaging and compelling message? Doesn't have to be soaring vision, like you said, but just to really reach somebody. Maybe it's a small audience. So how does it help them?
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you asked that question. There is actually a specific tool
Okay.
in the Campfire Method that we teach. It's called THAW. THAW. It stands for thanks, help, and wow. And so it's a simple 3-step process for getting unfrozen or getting unstuck in a moment where you're either caught off guard or you weren't expecting to necessarily lead someone on a journey in that moment.
Hmm.
But it's a reframe because ambushes happen. And I mean, raise your hand if you haven't been ambushed by by some news or some employee or some vendor or something, a reporter, right? This happens all the time to leaders. And so the thaw framework is really designed to help those in the moment conversations blossom and turn what could have been an ambush into an opportunity. So
Mm.
thanks, help, and wow is essentially speak gratitude into your audience. That's step one. Say thanks. Thanks for asking that question. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all you've done so far. It really the expression matters less than the intention. Just some sort of expression of gratitude. Follow that up with help. So either here's the help I need from you, or here's what we are doing to address this issue. Here's the help we're bringing, or here's the help we need.
Nice.
And then finally, wow is take a minute to celebrate, lift their eyes, take them out of the current situation and remind them of what could be. And then you have effectively turned an adrenaline soaked situation into a dopamine situation where people are going, "Oh, I like where we're going. I want more of that."
Okay, so are we going to talk about the fourth element, which I think I know what that is? It's you, isn't it?
It's you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the fourth promise in the campfire method is that you'll know yourself. And really what that comes down to is Well, let me frame this up. Most presentation training, most public speaking training teaches you how to be like everyone else. It teaches you that there is a certain place you hold your hands. It teaches you that when you speak, you need to have your thumbs resting on your index finger. Or it teaches you that you should stand at the podium. And there's a lot of those are kind of silly examples, but there are so many different criteria for how to turn the knobs on what you ultimately are as the medium for your message. And that's really what it's all about. So, knowing yourself is taking responsibility for the fact that when you have an idea in a high stakes moment, you alone are the medium for that message. And so here are ways that you can adjust and be authentically you, not some other version of you.
That's so good. What can get in the way of that authenticity showing up? What are the things you've come to understand are common that prevent leaders from showing up this way?
Well, one, and probably the biggest one, is that we've been taught for decades that emotion doesn't belong at work.
Right.
I think that's the number one challenge in creating an authentic presence, um, is that we've been told that we need to keep things factual, simple, even transactional. Tell people, like, some of the worst presentation advice, for example, is tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them, right?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
be brief, be brilliant, be gone. It's there's all these different axioms and different expressions that kind of put leaders in a position to think that what they really need to be is not there.
Mm.
And
Oh,
so
that's good.
and it's very, very challenging to break through that and kind of get over that hurdle. But when you accept your responsibility, when you accept that you are the medium for your idea and that you alone are the only way that your audience will ever understand it or make sense of it or derive any sense of belief or meaning or purpose from it, that's when everything changes. So emotion is allowed to show up. In fact, it's encouraged to. It's how you show up as the owner of the idea, not just the information that supports it.
Right. I have to say, too, leaders that think emotion isn't visible to others might be fooling themselves. Their face and their voice, their tone of voice may say one thing, but their body language and their energy, um, forgive me, Tim, but my husband is kind of like that. Like he'll say one thing, but you're reading his body and going, "Oh no, that does not line up." So I think that's a challenge. The other thing, and you made this point for me when I was doing your training, preparation, rehearsal. We can't we can't just wing it. So can you say,
Mhm.
just give us a minute on what kind of preparation is needed?
Yeah, no, that's the second part of really what the presenter presence is all about. And when you think about what we currently do, compare the preparation process of an elite athlete or a Broadway performer, right? The percentage, the ratio of practice time to performance time is so different, skewed wildly in favor of practice.
Mhm.
Athletes practice for hours every day to then go play in a 1 hour competition. It's
Right?
it is remarkable the degree of well, it's remarkable how that's flipped in corporate culture. How every minute of every day is game day for these leaders. And and so they often don't prioritize or don't have the discipline or the muscle to force that practice into a very busy schedule.
Right?
So at Gather Round, we have a rule. It's 1 hour for every 5 minutes of content. So yes, a 30-minute presentation takes 6 hours of rehearsal. It's necessary. And the reason it's necessary is because, like anything, you get better the more you do it. It's actually scientifically proven. Practice does make perfect. It's a process called myelination where proteins
Mhm.
actually bind to the neurons in the brain. It's the reason why Malcolm Gladwell wrote Outliers. It's real. Practice makes better.
Wow.
So
That is so true. I would imagine you encourage people to get a mock audience. I mean, get people in front of you.
I do. And in fact, I recommend two types of audiences. I recommend one who has a stake in the idea, one who does not. So the person with the stake in the idea, or the people, are going to evaluate your idea, and the people without are going to evaluate you.
Eric, as we kind of head into the home stretch here, we're going to just make sure that people have access to a link to where they can find your book, which is going to be dropping soon. They can have the Campfire Method in their hands. They can study it. They can also work with you directly, like I did. You work with teams, you work with individual presenters and leaders. So we'll make sure that people have access to you through the show notes. Two final points I'd love you to speak to. One is adrenaline is a hidden enemy. And the second is information does not equal understanding. Can you just touch on those as we come into the home stretch?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, for starters, adrenaline as the common enemy. One thing that presenter, and this is usually a light bulb moment in trainings. Um, Presenters who take high stakes stages in big moments are often, when I ask them to describe how it feels, they describe similar sensations: heart racing, stomach bats, right? They're
Mhm.
the
Shortness of breath.
shortness of breath,
Yeah.
sweating, cotton mouth, right? All of
Might
these
throw
things
up in a
happen.
bucket.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, and 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 they're very focused on what that feels like for them. And all of that is absolutely true, but it's only half the story. So the other half of the story is that your audience is also flooded with adrenaline in those high stakes moments. Audiences arrive to presentations, especially the high stakes ones, asking themselves more questions than they have answers to. What does this mean for me? What am I about to hear about? Are they going to ask anything of me? Am I involved in this? Am I affected by this?
Mhm.
Right, and the fear that the unknowns create for the audience creates that adrenaline sensation. Not to mention the sensation of being slammed into with ideas all day, every day. Right, the leaders are showing up on their employees and their audience's front doorsteps, going, "Here's a thing. Do you want it? Do you want to buy some?"
Right.
Right? It happens all day, every day. So the adrenaline factor is high, and it lives on both sides of the equation. It is very present in the presenter. It is very present in the audience. And so if you can see that adrenaline is that common enemy, then what you have to embrace is that your role as the communicator in that is not to sell in an idea. That's not your first responsibility. Your first
Right.
responsibility is to reduce the adrenaline on both sides of the table.
Well, and if you taught me that if you don't design for this, you will be rejected. Like you and your ideas are already done before you get 5 minutes into the work.
Oh, absolutely. Because adrenaline creates a binary sensation in
Right.
the audience. And so really your odds, when your audience is experiencing fight or flight, your odds of successfully moving them from point A to point B become 50%. Just like that. Just right off the jump.
Well, and
So
if people get your book, they can learn about how to address that right in the beginning of your presentation. By the way,
absolutely.
yeah, this is powerful. And then simply, information does not equal understanding.
No,
But
it does not. It does not. Information is free. It is everywhere. In the age of AI, it's the push of a button or speak to text into Chat GPT. It is, I can get all the information I need anytime, all the time. What it what it takes real intentional human communication to create is understanding. And that understanding comes from belief. It comes from a sense of, oh, I see that there is potential here and I want to be a part of it. And now I can understand what it takes for me to be involved in it. And I would look to, some of Jonathan Haidt's work, for example, just the different systems that we live in, system one, system two, all of logic tends to follow emotion. So when we as presenters lead with information, we're speaking to the caboose when we could have been speaking to the engine.
That's a great visual. I think I've heard a lot of leaders say, well, we talked about this. I told them this. Like, I shared that in a meeting, as if that equates to buy-in, understanding, clarity, direction, and it doesn't. So, all the more reason why we wanted to feature this campfire method so that leaders can start to own the results they're getting with their people when they're trying to move from here to there. And any organization we encounter today there's so much change happening. We've got to move, but there's a way in which we do that effectively. And the
Oh yeah,
campfire method helps
absolutely.
us do that. Yeah. What's next for you? What's on the horizon for you?
So what's next is I plan to do quite a bit of speaking
Yeah.
because the book is in the world, and in the course of writing this book, I may have accidentally written another one, which is
Oh,
should be coming on its heels. But because this book really is all about the braver presenter in you.
yes.
Um, but there was a series of chapters all about creating a culture of storytelling in your organization. And when I looked at the total picture of the book and said, well, that feels like it lives near but not directly with the responsibility that we have as leaders, um, to be the medium for the messages for these ideas. And so I would imagine in the next couple of years there's going to be a companion book to the Campfire Method all about creating a culture where this type of communication is not only tolerated but it's encouraged.
I look forward to that. Eric, we want to say thank you for
Mhm.
your contribution to connection, because this is really about leaders being more present to and aware of who they are and creating conversations and sharing information in ways that acknowledge and reverence who they have with them. That's how I'll say it.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. That really is honestly what it's all about is just let's return to the essence of storytelling because that's what makes us human with one another.
And for our listeners, we'll throw out a challenge to you this week. What if you had a meeting and a conversation without the deck? Like,
Mhm.
you might have to do a little work to get ready for it. They can use a flip chart though, right? If they needed to, Eric,
Oh
they could
yeah,
actually they could
absolutely.
create a visual in the conversation. But what if you let go of the deck? Can you imagine
Yeah.
a deck-free meeting? It's beautiful. Eric, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with y'all today. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Good having you here, and we'll see you next time on the Boss Hole Chronicles. Thanks very much for checking out this episode of the Boss Hole Chronicles. It was so good to have you here. And if you have your own Boss Hole story that you want to share with the Boss Hole Transformation Nation, just reach out. You can email us at mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. Again, mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. We'll see you next time.